Yo guys, with Marty VR, and I told you guys we're gonna be back to do a Quest 3 versus Steam Frame comparison video. And the only reason, and I know what you guys are gonna say, Marty, the heck is not like it. Okay, hold down, listen to me. Now, the main thing we're gonna compare is specs, build quality, and just overall the differences between the two, so people can decide if they even want a Steam Frame or just stick with a Quest, because these headsets really, in terms of fundamentals, are completely different. And it's kind of hard to compare them other than the fact that they're standalone VR headsets. And I have had a lot of people kind of DM me asking, hey man, Quest is having a sale for Black Friday and it's gonna be Christmas sales, only have so much monies. So, you know, I want to make my decision sooner rather than later, because Valve isn't releasing probably until the first 2 months of next year. So I'm gonna try my best as somebody who's reviewed like 11 VR headsets to try to kind of help you guys guesstimate or get closer to what you want to do with your VR headset, and choose between both of these VR headsets before, you know, all the Christmas money come out and all that stuff. Because as a father, you know, I get it. He will only have so much money for Christmas. Kids want gifts. The wife wants some Black Friday, the holidays, family, travel, all that stuff. So we're gonna try to figure this out in this video. And the first thing we got to cover is price. So obviously, as we know, for the Steam Frame, there is no price yet. Now the Quest 3 is $499, which is very hard to beat by a lot of people, especially new people coming into VR. I don't really know the differences between all these different VR headsets. They just see price first and then wonder why this one is more expensive than that one. Now for the Steam Frame for this video, I'm definitely going to be in a price range, the ideal price range. Now, if this headset is over $899, then the conversation completely changes, right? And it definitely is a harder sell and probably DOA for most of you. Now, for me, I'd probably still get it because I still want, you know, to have the headset and have a Linux-based headset, all that stuff. But for the average person, they're gonna see $499 versus $899 and be like, hell no. So for this comparison video, we're gonna do multiple tiers of pricing towards the end. And that really signify which headset I think would be better for each person. But to say my ideal price for the Steam Frame, I'm guessing personally $699 to $499. So somewhere in that range. If it's $499, it completely changes the game. But if it's $599 to $699, we're gonna see. And I think it's gonna be a bit of a different conversation. It's not DOA if it's in that price range. But I think for a lot of people, you really have to sell it to them for that extra few hundred dollars, especially when you compare it to a Quest 3. And so to kind of focus on the differences really between these two headsets, we really have to focus on kind of where they kind of separate fundamentally, right? And so if you've been on the channel for a while, you know I usually go down like specs, build quality, price, and display, blah, 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 blah. I think for this one, I think I'm gonna have a lot of newer people to VR. You don't want to hear all that technical jargon that you really won't care about. I'm gonna go into the fundamental differences between these two headsets. So the Steam Frame is a PCVR juggernaut, right? This is for wireless PCVR streaming, modularity, all this other stuff. And then the Quest 3 is really a jack of all trades. That's what I've always called the Quest 3. That's essentially what it is. It does everything to a decent level, but it doesn't do one thing great. Now, if you're a PCVR first kind of person just like me, then the Quest 3 is serviceable. It serves its purpose. You probably will have to upgrade your Wi-Fi setup just to get a good wireless PCVR situation. But if you want standalone games, it has it. If you want like to watch movies and stuff like that, it can do it, and do it at a pretty decent viewing level. Obviously both of these headsets are LCD, so that means they basically are going to look the same. So every time you're in a dark environment on a Quest 3 or a Steam Frame, it's not going to look as good as a micro OLED headset, meaning that instead of being like fully dark, you know, like when you go into a dark room, everything's like black, right? On a LCD headset, it's more gray, more so than real pure dark. And you get those real pure darks on OLED or micro OLED, right? And so for most people, you're not going to care, because I mean, if this is your first VR headset, this is going to be the best for you because it's your first. So it really comes down to, are you a PCVR person? Do you want to get into the ecosystem? Are you buying a Steam machine? Because if you get a Steam machine and a Steam frame, you're basically good. So you can basically do whatever PCVR you want. You can also run Android apps on there. But let's say if somebody took like a APK, maybe took APK from like a MetaQuest or any other online store that does like, you know, XR games, you can throw it on a Steam frame, run it with absolutely no problem. And it can also run Windows applications through Proton, which is pure Linux. So a lot of times it's I think it's on a compatibility layer. So it's a compatibility layer. You can run any type of Windows application used through Proton, and it works flawlessly. And I even think they said themselves it's only like a percent, like a small percent of change in terms of performance versus running it on native Windows. And lastly, you can run Linux applications. So emulators, literally anything you can think of on Linux, you'll be able to run on the Steam frame. Now, when you come to MetaQuest, it's not the same. So you're very limited in what you can do, and you can really only do what Meta gives you to do. So whatever is in the Play Store is full game. You can sideload applications, and some people do that to play like Questcraft, which is like mobile Minecraft for the Quest, and a lot of different applications. Me personally, I would rather lean towards the Steam frame for that, because I'll be honest with you, it's a whole operating system in a headset. And so for me personally, as a person who likes to tinker, install emulators, and do all this stuff, I would lean towards Steam frame. Now, for the average person who just wants to click, download, get into something, you probably lean MetaQuest that way, because it's just it'll be just a lot simpler on the Quest. But eventually, as you get more used to VR, you will be limited by the ecosystem. That's kind of what I hate about Meta, is that they kind of approach software with a very closed off approach. And personally, I don't like that. So we really got a closed off ecosystem versus a pure open ecosystem, because the Valve devs want you to do whatever you want in that VR headset. And I, as a person who likes doing whatever I want in terms of technology, respect that. And in terms of which headset is more powerful, on paper, the Steam frame is about 30% more powerful, because the MetaQuest actually underclocks itself for some reason. Now, I think the reason may be just to kind of not burn the headsets out running at full power. I don't know. Maybe it's like a heating issue or something else. I'm not as knowledgeable on the inner workings of the MetaQuest, but I do know that, you know, I know what I know, that the MetaQuest is 30% less strong than the Steam frame. And that's kind of why the pricing here is a little interesting to me, because, okay, if the Steam frame is more expensive, it really genuinely is the stronger headset, right? The MetaQuest would be the cheaper headset. And so it makes sense that the MetaQuest would be weaker. So if you pay $200 more for the Steam frame, you're paying for more power to run everything, right? So if you want to run like Silksong in VR standalone mode, you could do that. If you want to run games like Cyberpunk, I don't know how that would go, but I would think that probably low settings, maybe medium if you get lucky. But but I can tell what Valve is working to. They want you to be able to stream games like Half-Life Alyx one day on the Steam frame. It may not be this version of the Steam frame, but maybe in future versions that are more powerful and a lot more optimized, because that's something that Valve is really, really, really good at, is optimizing hardware. The Steam Deck that came out all those years ago, like the first month, is a completely different thing than it is now. The Steam Deck is a beast because it's been updated, and that's why people will choose a Steam Deck over options like Lenovo Go or the Aya Neo and there's other brands, because Valve is masters at updating software to be better over time. Now, I will give Meta credit there, because the Quest 3 I got years ago versus what I have now is infinitely better. Now, if you're a person who cares more about standalone games, then I think that the Steam frame would be a better option here. Hear me out. So if you want to play standalone games, technically you have the whole Steam PCVR library if it can run. Now that if it can run is a big thing there. Now, some developers are updating, have already updated their games to run on the Steam frame. So you have standalone modes for Steam frame compatible versions of a lot of these games. And the thing is, Meta has a very big library. of a lot of games that are actually pretty good. Like Asgard's Wrath, even the Deadpool that came out, I heard is pretty good. I don't know how it's in the Game Awards, but whatever. And just a bunch of other exclusives that they have that are solid and satisfy a lot of the MetaQuest community that actually buy games, right? So there's a library on both sides, but it depends on what type of graphics you're looking for. So obviously the Steam frame is stronger, so it can stream those native PCVR games that might look better than the Quest version. And that's kind of been a big thing in the PCVR community, is that, and this is kind of fact, is that we get a lot of Quest port style games, meaning that they're lower resolution, meant to run on the MetaQuest. Now, they're not wrong, because even myself, I was physically disgusted by the PCVR ports for some of those Quest games. I was like, bro, we couldn't get like an extra shadow or two, you know, but it's just the name of the game. So especially when MetaQuest is the one paying a lot of these developers to make games, all that stuff, you know. And so I think that's one thing we're going to have to see with the Steam frame, is that if the developers can make their money back, we can get higher quality games. And so it's kind of like the weird paradox that VR has right now, where people want better graphics, people want Half-Life Alyx quality, but we kind of have to get there. And so what I'm hoping is, as a person who's been here for a while, is that the new blood that enters the ecosystem on the PCVR side revitalizes PCVR. We can see more of these honestly great games that have been overlooked over the years, and get some more down the future that are higher and higher quality. And even for standalone, we can talk about foveated rendering one day. Now, the Steam frame does have eye tracking. So basically, eye tracking can help optimize games by a lot if foveated rendering is enabled. And so this may get developers to actually implement that, because I mean, it's a popular headset. Well, I'm hoping it's gonna be a popular headset, and it might push people to get foveated rendering working on the device. Now, there already is software out there that uses Pimax, which is another PCVR company. They have a foveated rendering solution, and basically Pimax Magic for All enables foveated rendering for some games. So maybe like Flight Sim or UE VR games, which is Unreal Engine injected mod VR games, or anything else, even on the standalone side, potentially one day, you could have games that run marginally better on a Steam frame and look better. So potentially down the road, you could have standalone games that look like probably medium level PCVR games instead of Quest games. Now, the Quest doesn't have eye tracking, and so there's the limit on the Quest is how much GPU they allow. So one day they could allow more GPU and we could get better looking Quest games, but we don't know when they'll do that, or if they'll just make a Quest 4 or put out the headset that they're planning on putting out next year that we can assume is going to be stronger than the Quest 3. But is the price also going to be higher with that new headset? So a lot of questions here, a lot of debates and speculation, but I think it comes down to what ecosystem are you willing to invest in for the long term? Now let's circle back to the PCVR side, because a lot of my community, especially on YouTube, are PCVR first. And that's why I love y'all, right? But a lot of you guys are PCVR first. Now, the Steam frame has 2 wireless radios in it, one that connects to your home Wi-Fi and the other that connects to the 6 gigahertz dongle that comes in the box. So this is gonna be the best wireless PCVR streaming you can get under $1,000. Hands down, no debates, no ifs, ands, buts about it. You won't have to go out and buy another router. A lot of you guys, ISPs, internet service providers, don't have great routers. I know, because I had to upgrade my router from AT&T to be able to, my country just came out, my router. Upgrade my router from AT&T to basically be able to run the Quest 3 at a decent resolution with decent latency or very low latency. Now, my latency is great because I have my Wi-Fi 6, I have my 5090, so I'm basically good there. But not everybody has that. And that's what Valve is trying to fix. Because the biggest issue with the Valve Index is that you needed a PC to run it. Now, with the Steam frame, we can get PCVR at a lower price without a PC, but all you need is a Steam account, buy the game, boom, and you can run it. Now, it may not be the highest resolution, like playing a Half-Life Alyx on there, But for certain stylized VR games, you probably could get it all. Or games that just have lower overall, just loads on PCs like Contractors or Gorn or any other game that just runs well on lower tier hardware. And it just eliminates so many problems like being too far away from your router if you're running through Wi-Fi or being bottlenecked or anything like that. They literally eliminate every wireless problem using those 2 radios and that wireless dongle. So it's literally a perfect PCVR solution. And I don't think a lot of people with DisplayPort, DisplayPort fantasies, like a lot of my PCVR crowd, and even me at one point, I felt the same way. But it genuinely is going to be DisplayPort level, because even with this little headset right here, the Play for Dream MR, I quite literally get DisplayPort level PCVR on this headset. Now, is it perfect? No. But is it great? Yes. It is phenomenal. Now, I would always highly recommend it to anybody who wants just pure wireless PCVR. Now, another thing I want to talk about is comfort. So the people at Upload VR put out an article going over their first experiences with the Steam Frame, and that's kind of been what I've been going off of, because I really trust them and they have not lied to me like ever about a VR headset. So shout out to Upload VR, salute. But when they tried the Steam Frame out at Valve's HQ, they said it felt really comfortable and probably one of the most comfortable headsets out of the box that they've tried. Now, if you know me, you know I absolutely abhor the base Quest 3 strap. I think it's terrible. It looks like a thong. I don't like it. Now, some people don't have any issues with it, but for me, it's more of a balancing issue because the front of the headset is so heavy, it tilts down. No good. Now, the Steam Frame is a lot more balanced. And I think you can take off the whole strap and put on whatever solution you want. So I think that's going to be a big key to a lot of people, is being comfortable for hours playing VR. So I think personally, in terms of just pure modularity, I would probably give the edge to the Steam Frame. But the Quest 3 also has some really great head straps like Bobo and all that other stuff that really make for a just nice experience. And even the Bobo strap for the Quest 3 is so good. Put it on my other VR headsets that have nothing to do with Quest. So yeah, that shout out Bobo. I've never partnered with them, but salute. Now, in terms of tracking and controllers, I've heard really good things about the tracking for the Steam Frame and the Quest 3. So I feel like for tracking, we can kind of put them on the same level for now, because the Steam Frame has a lot of infrared LED and stuff like that make for a really good tracking experience. And the Steam Frame can also be played with in the dark. That's kind of like a slight edge on the Quest, but the Quest just has phenomenal tracking. I gotta give it to them. Great tracking, even in low light settings, and even like the controllers are tracked very well on the Quest. Now for the Steam Frame, it might be a little bit different because we haven't seen them in full use, but based off the Upload VR article, I can assume that the tracking on the Steam Frame is going to be really good. So I think the main thing about the Steam Frame though might be the ergonomics of the controller, because it has all those extra buttons, the D-pad, and trying to reach those probably with like smaller hands or even just maybe even bigger hands might be a little difficult. So I'll probably give them about equal on that. And next, I want to mention the color pass-through. So for a lot of people who use the Quest 3, mixed reality is important. I totally recognize that and I respect that, right? So mixed reality really helps in building a open ecosystem visually. So a lot of times if I'm sitting at my desk and I have my Quest 3 on, I could see my outside environment, which is nice. I can type on my computer. If I'm looking at virtual desktop, looking at a big screen, it's nice. I will say that. It's very nice. It's very useful. But since the Steam Frame is a PCVR headset, essentially, they didn't really care about that. So I think if that's a big deal breaker for you, you won't like the Steam Frame, because you'll be going back to the black and white Quest 2 level pass-through, which I think isn't the best. And I kind of wish they kind of did add color pass-through, just so people wouldn't complain about it, to be honest with you. Personally, I don't care, but it's nice sometimes to have it. So I think that a lot of people will not like the pass-through, and I'm hoping that they do put out something, or the next version of the Steam Frame has that, because the Quest 3's pass-through was actually really good, some of the best in XR, to be honest with you. And even the Quest 3S has really good pass-through. So I think if you plan on doing like mixed reality and stuff like that, or maybe use it as a spatial computer, meaning that, you know, you surf the web and all that stuff, write papers on the Quest, then you probably will want a lean towards the Quest for that, for color pass-through. But if you're a PCVR gamer first, you don't really care about that, and obviously Steam Frame is the way to go. All right, so last thing I want to talk about is ecosystem. And this is where I think Valve is really going to outshine Meta, especially in a year's time. So Meta has more of a closed off ecosystem, and Valve has more of an open ecosystem. So basically what that means is that on the Steam Frame, you're literally gonna be able to do whatever the fuck you want, right? You'll be able to do whatever updates you want, whatever software you want to build, literally anything you want to do, you can do on a Steam Frame, right? Now that might not mean anything to the average person, but to somebody who has seen what happened on the Steam Deck, that's great. We need that for VR for sure, because now while specs do sell a VR headset, software really matters. Like software really matters, because for MetaQuest, they've kind of burnt a lot of bridges, especially on the PCVR side, because of the shaky updates, stuff like that. Now people obviously stay because it's the only standalone headset, especially under $1,000 as of right now before the Steam Frame, that you can get a really good wireless PCVR experience, and we all know that, right? But I think that in a year's time, when people get to really touching Linux and porting over Windows apps and all this other crazy stuff, APKs, I mean, we're talking Linux, Windows, and Android all coming together on one ecosystem. That's insane. Now, for Meta, the one thing I wish they would do is open up their ecosystem. Open it up so that people can get in there, do what they want, and really honestly just improve it. There's a lot of improvements they made over the years that have been great, and I appreciate that. Somebody that spent those couple $100. But as somebody who is a developer myself, I like the way they approach software a lot of the time. Now, I feel like it just isn't good long term, and they really ignore developers. I'm gonna be honest with you. I see, now that I'm on Twitter and I follow a lot of XR devs in the Meta space, Meta honestly does whatever they want. They push out updates that break things, and if developers complain about it, they don't address it fully. And even as somebody myself who worked on websites, apps, front end, back end, that's annoying, right? And it's not conducive to a growing ecosystem, because it's like you don't really care. Like I even saw Boz block the developer or the head of Fluid XR, which is one of the best apps on the MetaQuest. It's like, what are we doing here? Now, I'm not saying that Valve, in terms of a company, would treat theirs better, because I mean, Valve is more hands-off. They're like, hey man, we give you the tools, y'all do what y'all want, develop for our platform. And I even made a video going over what Valve can do to really highlight VR. I hope you guys check that out. But I think that over the course of a year, the MetaQuest, maybe 2 years, I give it 2 years, maybe a year and a half, depending on who's working on software. I personally think that the Steam Frame and the MetaQuest will not be comparable in terms of ecosystem. Then in 1 year, to a year and a half to 2 years. I'm being honest. I mean, we can see custom launchers for the Steam Frame. You literally can do whatever you want. I don't think people realize that, because they never touched Steam Deck and saw what people did over there. I mean, amazing stuff on the Steam Deck. So overall, even on paper, without the headset being out, I think that the Steam Frame beats Meta in terms of ecosystem right now. All right, to sum up this conversation and kind of put a neat little bow after all my yapping, because I'm not gonna lie, this was very disorganized. I just have so much thoughts and I'm just kind of talking. So the main thing that people should take away from this video, $499, Steam Frame, Quest 3, same price, right? I think overall, in terms of jack of all trades, the Quest 3 will have more value, but it'll be perfect at nothing. And I think the ecosystem will really start showing its holes after another year. Now, Steam Frame, if you're a PCVR person, if you like Steam, if you like having your Steam library all in one thing, you like Linux, I'm over here. Like, if you're a PCVR person, you like high graphics, come over here, right? And also, if like color pass-through isn't a deal breaker for you, like, come on. It's literally a spatial computer, and there's something that happens to do spatial computing. That's literally how I see these two headsets being different. Now let's go up in price more. So let's say like we just did what, $599, $699, then it really depends if you're a PC VR enthusiast or not, because most people would at that point probably get the Quest 3 because they see a lower price tag. Other than the people who just don't like Meta, then they'll probably still move over towards Steam Frame. Now, let's talk $799. That's where the conversation gets more strained. That's when we're slowly getting to enthusiast tier. And that's where I think the comparison starts to break down. So at that point, unless you're a pure PCVR enthusiast, you want the perfect wireless PCVR under $1,000, you would go Steam Frame. But for most people, most casuals, they're gonna go towards the Meta Quest because it offers more all around. Even though they might end up spending more money because of routers and stuff like that for PCVR, if they even do PCVR, then they would go this way. And for the last price, which is $899, oh yeah, that's when most people are gonna pick the Quest 3, just hands down, let's be honest. Even for PCVR, all that stuff, most people are gonna pick the Quest 3 because $499 versus $899 would be insane. Now, I hope that Valve prices it right, but that's really the whole thing of this conversation. But yeah, to sum it up again, I mean, Steam Frame literally has perfect PCVR. You can play standalone games. You can play PCVR games in standalone mode, or you can just play PCVR games through your PC or your Steam machine if you get one. Full spatial computer if you want to deal with all that stuff. A lot of value over here in terms of just a pure PCVR device. Now, over here on the Meta Quest side, you have a very jack of all trades ecosystem, mixed reality, color pass-through. You have the Meta Quest store, even though I hate the way it's curated. And I'm gonna get into that in another video. I hate the Meta Quest store because you can never find, like, anyway, a lot of games on there. You do have a lot of good experiences like Fluid XR for computing. You do have, there are ways to watch YouTube on there. There's a lot of different ways to do stuff on the Meta Quest you can kind of get around in terms of what they offer. But it is a more locked down ecosystem, not a lot in terms of customizing your experience. And you gotta deal with Horizon Worlds, which is ugly. And I was like, I'm good. Like if right now, if I had neither headset, I personally would lean towards the Steam Frame just because I'm a PCVR guy. But if you don't care about PCVR and you don't use Steam or anything like that, then probably would just get a Meta Quest. All right, so let me know if that helped you guys, because that was a lot of rambling and my thoughts are everywhere, but I tried to condense them into this video. Let me know what you guys are thinking, because it's a lot to consider, especially for different price ranges and stuff like that. But see more do VR, and remember, I'm just a dude with a VR headset. Peace.